Now that we have disassembled your pump and cleaned the components, it's time to reassemble your model with the repair kit you received from us. This is a repair kit that you can order from us, and we'll send it out to you. It comes with various seals, O-rings, some super O-lube to treat your seals. It comes with just about every seal. There's some seals that aren't replaced in a repair. They're mostly static seals. They're just in contact with the water, no product. So some of those seals you won't have to replace. In the repair kit, you also receive a print and a BOM that's included. So it will list out all your parts. You'll be able to look at your print, find what part you're looking for, and it'll show you a general idea where that O-ring or seal or part is to go. Prints are pretty detailed, so you should be able to find everything you need on here. So right now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the water motor together first. We're going to assemble certain sections of this proportioner. Right now this is your end plate, and you're going to insert an O-ring on this side, and you're going to insert an O-ring on this side. So first we'll take our small O-ring and we're going to insert it inside this end plate. And in this end plate there's a groove right here, and that groove is where this O-ring will go into. Slide it down till it seats. I always run my finger around it. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the bigger O-ring in this groove right here. There's this groove right here. So what I like to do is I stretch these O-rings a little. Then I'm going to run my finger around, get it seated. And sometimes I want to pop out. So then I take my main cylinder and I'm just going to put a little pressure, give it a turn, and get that seated into place. And it should stay there. Just give it a good once over before you install it, before we put these pieces together, just to make sure all your grooves are in place, or your O-rings are in the grooves. So we're going to do this other one. So again, we're going to take our small O-ring, put it in that groove, make sure it's seated. Now we're going to take our larger O-ring, give it a stretch, and we're going to install that into this groove. Again, take our main cylinder, give a little push down and a twist. We'll see if that holds. Looks like it's holding. Looks like everything. Got one little spot there that maybe is not quite seated. Okay. So now we're gonna take, this is your rear end plate bushing. This piece comes pre-assembled already, which we talked about in the disassembly video. So this piece already is ready to go. All you have to do is install it into your end plate. Just go until it's tight. You don't have to give it a whole bunch, just tight. That O-ring will stop any water, you know, from coming out. So now that we have these done, we're gonna bring in our main piston. Main piston, we're gonna wanna look over this shaft, make sure everything looks good, no nicks, no grooves, any issues like that. Look in this groove here, this O-ring, make sure there's no marks, scars, anything like that. Make sure that your lips of your main piston for the groove lips aren't cracked or broke, anything like that. So now we're going to take our O-ring, slide it over the groove like that. We're going to take our cap seal. This cap seal is split, so we're going to put that on. That O-ring will center the cap seal. It's got little lips on the side of the cap seal, and it'll center out really nice. This gap right here will squeeze together tight when you insert it in your main cylinder. We're going to go ahead and do that right now. So I'm going to tilt my main piston, come in at an angle about like that. And then I'm going to rotate it, slide it into place. And then what I'm going to do is push it down here for assembly, so I have something to push on the back side when we install it into the end plate. So we're going to grab our end plates. Okay, so now I'm going to install this main piston and main cylinder into this end plate through my rear end plate bushing. Insert the shaft into your rear end plate bushing. And you're going to have to give it a little rotation, get it started, rotate it forward. Now make sure when you slide your main cylinder into your end plate that O-ring was still seated, because if it pops out, a lot of times it'll pop out to the inside of the main cylinder and you're not going to be able to see it. But you'll find out when you hook water to it, it'll leak. So I'm going to push that in a little ways. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring my other end plate up. Get that lined up there. Grab my hardware. Like this. Grab my nuts and bring them over. Install those on each screw. So you can tighten these with a 5/16 nut driver, or I have an electric screwdriver. And we have the screwdriver set at 18-inch or 8-inch pounds, not 8 foot-pounds, 8-inch pounds. So it doesn't take a lot to tighten them up. So if you tighten these up by hand, you can just bring it in till it's, you know, snug, and then I would adjust accordingly. You don't want to have it so tight that you suck everything into the point where it's smashed all the O-rings and it creates this distance too small. All it needs is basically 8-inch pounds is all you need, and that is plenty enough to withstand, like, I think it's like 1500 psi. So, and we only run the unit at 775, so 8 is plenty enough. So I'm just going to go ahead and start tightening these up a little bit. And I'm doing it in a star pattern. Just like that. I'm going to grab my screwdriver. Now we are going to tighten this one up till the clutch disengages. So there we go. I'm going to move down to the bottom. Sides. Check, like I check here on the, you can look at your, from the face of your nut to the top of the threads, and usually it's about 3 threads. So 3 threads showing is about 8-inch pounds of torque, and you can go by that and you'll know that you're not over tightening, and everything else will line up accordingly in the rest of the assembly. So basically now you have built your water motor. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple, and we'll go on to the next part of the demonstration. The next process that we're going to do is we're going to assemble your chemical cylinder. We're going to put a polypack seal inside the neck of this particular cylinder. This model and another model, we have take these particular polypack seals in the back side of the chemical cylinder. This cylinder runs dry on the back side to the atmosphere. It's open to the atmosphere here. So we need to put this polypack seal inside this nose, so that way water doesn't get past into the atmosphere in the backside of this chemical cylinder. This polypack seal has got a O-ring inside of basically a trough, and that O-ring helps load that seal so it keeps good pressure on the walls, so it keeps it expanded out of the neck in this chemical cylinder. In this chemical cylinder, there is a groove right here that polypack seal will go into. So make sure you look it over real good. Make sure it's clean. Make sure there's no marks that may have happened when you were disassembling it. So the first step I do is I squeeze this polypack. I'm going to squeeze it so it goes, elongates there. They're stiff. These seals are really stiff. But if you just squeeze it, and you're going to want this O-ring is going to be facing the back of the chemical cylinder. So when you're assembling it, it's going to be facing up. So we're going to go ahead and slide that in. So I have that about half to 3/4 of the way in. And I've got a screwdriver here that I took and I dulled the edges on so I can't cut the seal or mar the seal. And I'm going to just take my screwdriver, put it on the top here where that fold is, up on top of your polypack, and I'm going to bend it over. Keep applying pressure until it pops down into that groove. When it starts in that groove, then you're going to slowly move it around and seat the lips of that seal into that groove. Now that O-ring looks something like this, so it's curved down and it's bent inside the cylinder. Okay, so we're just going to work our way around with our screwdriver. We're going to work our way around and pull that up into the groove. So I'm just moving it in just a little bit, and I'm being careful with the tip of the screwdriver. I do not want to have it hit the bore of the cylinder. So I'm just working it around nice and easy, nice and slow. And then I bring it to the top when I press up and I seat it again. Just keep working it around. Now I'm going to go to the other side, pull it up, seat it, pull it up, seat it. Then I'm going to go right to the edge of it. So I've got it almost all the way around. It's up now. So I'm going to take my screwdriver, pull it the rest of the way up. Give it a little help. So now my O-ring has popped out right there, has popped out. So now I'm just going to seat that O-ring in. So I take my flat blade and I'm just going to press it down. Then I'm going to take and turn it over, and I'm going to take my flat blade and I'm going to right on the neck of that, the neck of the cylinder. I'm just going to work my screwdriver around on the edge, and I'm just going to lightly press all the way around, okay? Just to make sure it's seated. I'm not poking hard, I'm just making sure it's seated in that groove. You don't want to stab through the seal or anything like that. So one last go around here. Then I'm going to take my screwdriver, take the round part of the shaft here, stick it through the center of my poly pack like this. See if you can see that. So then I'm going to take and I'm going to just go around it. This helps seat it into place. Okay. Inspect it all. Look at it. Make sure everything's good and seated. Now, so now you're going to take a retainer. And we're going to put that in your neck of your main cylinder. Or chemical cylinder, I'm sorry. Then you're going to have a snap ring. And there's a snap ring groove that goes around the top of this neck right here. And you're going to install that snap ring into that groove. Now these snap rings have a flat side and they have a curved side. You want the curved side or the convex side of the snap ring to face down. Flat side faces up. Take your snap ring, get it into place. I'm going to take my flat blade again of my screwdriver and I'm going to slide it underneath between that retainer and the snap ring and just make sure it is seated in that snap ring groove good. Now you have a retainer that is going to go over the top of your chemical cylinder. This retainer has a recess in it right here. So there's a recess for this snap ring, which we didn't take that snap ring off in the disassembly because there's really no need to take it off. So we're going to go ahead and you're going to put your recess so it goes down onto your snap ring. If you turn this around, have it the opposite way, it creates a bigger distance and your screws may not reach. And it also may pop that snap ring retainer off of there, that snap ring. So you want the recess side in, slide it forward like that. And that's pretty much your assembly of your chemical cylinder for this particular model of pump. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to prep your chemical piston for assembly into the pump. So again, you're going to look at your grooves, make sure there's no scarring, marks, make sure your lips of your grooves look good, no cracks, anything like that. Look them over. Then you're going to look at this shaft, make sure there's no deep grooves, dents, scratches, nicks, anything like that. We're also going to look at this dowel pin right here. Make sure it's in good shape, no wear. Yeah, looks good. We're also going to inspect your micro screw. And look at your threads, make sure they look good. Look at the surface on the micro screw. Make sure it's nice and clean. No grooves, no scratches, anything like that. Because these all these surfaces here all are going to have seals and O-rings on them. So you want to make sure that they really look good. So in your kit, you're going to receive a couple seals. One seal, this has a white mark on it. This seal and this seal are two different compounds. So this is why this one has a white mark on it. In your repair kit, the bag is marked with the part number, and it says with white mark on the bag. My suggestion is you don't take any of your seals, any of your parts that come in the rebuild kit out of the bag until you're ready to assemble it. That way you keep everything straight. So just take one at a time. That way you don't get them mixed up for some reason, and you end up assembling it wrong. So the one with the white mark on it is going to go on this side of your chemical piston. This is your product side right here. These seals are designed with, these are called a V seal or a U-cup seal, so they have a trough inside them that's open. So you always want to have your trough facing your product side, or your fluid, let's say your water side or your atmosphere side. These are designed when product hits them, they flare and it pushes against the bore of the cylinder, which keeps any product from blowing by and leaking back into your water motor or leaking into a dry atmosphere. So we're going to go ahead and add this, install this on the first groove. Trough side goes this way, always towards the front of the piston. So I'm just take my pick and rotate that around a couple times, make sure all the rolls and bumps get out of it, and it should look something like that. So you can see this lip right here, this lip sticks up higher, so product will come in, hit that lip, and even flare it up more. So now we're going to go ahead, we're going to put the other U-cup or V-seal on the back groove of your chemical piston. Trough always faces this way. You don't want the troughs facing each other or both of them facing the same direction, because they will not work correctly. I'll take my pick and get it started. Stretch it out over, go around it a couple times, make sure all the rolls, everything's out of it, and it should look just like that. So the troughs are facing the opposite way of each other. So now we have product hits here, dry to the atmosphere here, the air pressure holds it open as it runs back, and that way you don't have no blow by. So now our next step is to take your chemical cylinder, take your chemical piston, and we're gonna each kit is, you're sent a little bit of this super loop. This product is for conditioning your seals, So it makes assembly a lot easier, and it does a great job of creating a little less friction on your seals when you install them, and it conditions them, protects them. So this stuff we use quite a bit. So I have one open here. I'm just going to grab that. And what I'm going to do, just put a little bit on my finger. I'm going to go ahead on this end of the chemical piston shaft. I'm just going to put a little coating on there. Stand that out of the way. And while I'm at it, I might as well put a little on this polypack seal too, just to give it a good coating. So now, when you're installing this, you're going to slide your micro screw through your cylinder. It's going to come out the back side of your polypack through that hole. You have to be pretty careful when you're doing this. Line it up. Now I'm doing this from the side. Usually how I have it is I'll stand it up like this on its end, but it's a little hard. I might be able to show you here in the frame. I'll try. But you're gonna, one thing here before we go any farther, that dowel pin right there, that dowel pin, you're gonna want to be extra careful when you're sliding that polypack on here. You do not want to force it through. You just want to go real nice and easy. We actually assemble these chemical pistons first into the cylinder, then we install the micro screw. But since you're in the field, there's no way to do that. So you just have to be careful when you slide it back through. It won't hurt anything, you just have to be careful. So we're gonna go ahead and slide this through. So I think I'm gonna try it from the top since we might be able to see. Okay, I got it through. So I went that far is all I did. So I've got quite a ways till I get to that micro screw in the dowel pin in the micro screw. So I'm just rotating it slowly. Okay, I feel it right there. I feel it make contact with the seal. I'm just gonna rotate it nice and slow, and look, it came right out. Nothing to it. Okay, so now I've inserted my back lip of my piston into the cylinder. So we're going to take just a little bit more Super lube. And like, you can lube these seals before, but it gets a little messy, so I like to do it just before I install them. So I'm going to put a little bit of lube on the back of the seal. Just a light covering. It doesn't have to be a huge amount. but I just make sure and I get it all the way around. Now, I've got a spade here that I've dulled the edges on, and I'm going to go ahead and use that to press down on this lip. So I'm going to press down. I'm going to just slide it so it goes right on the inside of that chemical cylinder, okay? And I'm going to slide that pick around, work my way around that U-cup seal all the way around, and I'm going to keep going until I get it to slide in. You have to take, and usually I have this facing me like this, so I can keep good pressure. So I put my thumb on it like this. I usually turn it towards myself, that way I can see real good, and I just work my way around. But for the video's sake, I'll try to do it so you can see. So I'm going to go ahead and get a good grip. And I'm pressing pretty firm. Okay, I got it started. Rotate it here. And it might take me you a couple times to get it in there, but just be patient, go slow. It'll go in. You just got to be patient. So I'm keeping firm pressure, just rotating it around. And you'll see it sliding in there. Okay, it popped in. So now I'm just going to go ahead and slide it the rest of the way in. And I'm going to give this a little wipe down real quick. I got a little bit of lube on that. So basically that's your chemical cylinder and chemical piston assembly right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring in my water motor. And I'm going to bring in my chemical piston and cylinder. This spring is going to slide over the end of your micro screw and end up against your chemical piston shaft right there. When I install this assembly into the water motor, I like to keep my water motor tilted upright, because if you happen to tilt it this way and you don't keep everything, tight, the spring tight on here, it could slide off and it could drop inside your water motor, especially if you have your main piston back too far. It's going to create a gap here, and if that spring drops inside that water motor, you'll know, because when you go to run your pump, your main piston's going to come forward, it's going to hit the spring in here like this, probably going to be laying in there like that, boom, stop. The pump won't actuate then, won't run. So what I like to do is I always try to keep it tilted up. I slide it in. It seats all the way back into this shaft, about right to around there. So now I'm going to go ahead and get that lined up, and I'm just going to go ahead and tighten. It takes a little bit of pressure on this model because you got to push that chemical piston back probably a little ways. So I'll go ahead and tighten that up. And I'm just gonna get it pretty snug with my hand right now. And now that's your water motor and chemical cylinder installed together. Like I said, just make sure you keep an eye out on that spring. I've seen many of those springs come in that are down in that water motor. Somebody wanted to replace the U-cup, so they pulled the piston out, etc., etc. Well, the spring fell off, dropped inside. They sent it back, said the pump wasn't working, and the spring was in the water motor. It happens. But if you notice that that spring isn't on that micro screw, then you know that you got to take this apart to get it out of there, because there should be a spring there. If there's not a spring there, that's definitely where it's at, is right there. Now we're going to go ahead and sub-assemble your pump head. And this is basically your chemical check valve for your product. You know, basically it's going to have a ball on top, which acts as a check valve for when it strokes one way, and a ball on the bottom that acts as a check valve when it strokes another way. So when it pulls in chemical, it opens, pushes out chemical, this one closes, this one opens. So we're going to go ahead and assemble that, and we're going to grab our O-ring. We're going to stick it in this groove right here. See that groove right there? That's where that O-ring is going to go. So again, you want to inspect, make sure everything's clean. If you got solidified product in here, if you've got, you know, debris, like I've seen lots of things come through that have been stuck inside of there, from bugs to metal shavings to, you know, pieces of styrofoam, all kinds of different stuff. So, you know, just make sure it's clean. You know, always inspect it for any type of cracks. You know, if it's got, you know, look at your threads to make sure they look good. You know, that you just want to make sure the finish is nice in all the grooves. You know, if there's the finish isn't good in there, you know, for like either maybe it got marked when people took it apart, or you know, maybe there's just buildup, you know, from the environment. You know, make sure it's good and clean, because all those O-rings have to be, you know, placed against clean surfaces, smooth surfaces. So we're going to go ahead and drop this in there. I'm just going to reach down and push it in. Then I seat it. Then what I like to do is I take a check ball and I push on it and seat that real good and kind of roll it around to make sure that O-ring is seated. And I do a visual. Yep, looks good. Put my ball back in. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab a spring, two here. And these come with new springs in the kit. Little tangle here. So you have your spring, and then you're going to have your retainer. There's a boss on this retainer right here. So that spring's going to go around this boss, and you want the end of the spring to be flush on the base of the boss of the retainer. So I go ahead and lay that down, slide my spring over it, make sure it's flush. If it's not flush, you take like a little screwdriver or pick and make sure that it's all the way down. Now you're going to take your spring and retainer. Spring goes down against the ball. Retainer is facing upwards. Okay. So now I'm going to take this O-ring and I'm going to slide it down into this groove right here. Pushing the retainer down. If the retainer tends to go a little sideways on you, just take a pick. It's got a hole in the center of that retainer, and you can just work it around that way. Sometimes you can just push your finger on it. So now I'm just making sure it's seated in the groove good, which it is. So now you have your O-ring, retainer, spring, ball, O-ring. Okay. Now we're going to bring in our upper valve screw, which has a O-ring groove right here. Goes all the way around. And we're going to stick our O-ring in there. Give it a little stretch. Seat it. Screw it in. I always look at your upper valve screws, make sure the threads look good on them. Look for any broke spots or bad spots. So now I'm just going to tighten that up by hand. I get that pretty snug. Now you can take a channel locks and put on here and give it about 1/8 to 1/4 turn. You don't want to stick it on there and keep going around and around and around. All you have to do is take your channel locks, give it 1/8 to 1/4 turn. That's plenty. It'll seal. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to assemble the lower port of your pump head. So we're going to grab our retainer. We're going to take our other spring, slide that on, work it all the way down, make sure it's seated good, which it is. Now, this retainer, it's going to go, retainer goes down, retainer is going to go down, spring facing up. Okay. Going to grab this O-ring right here. We're going to slide it down around that spring, down to that retainer, work it around, get it pushed into place. It's a lot easier to put the spring on first on your retainer than try to put the spring on after it's inside. Now we're going to we'll go ahead and grab our lower valve screw. Okay. So we have a groove right here, this groove right here. And we're going to take that, make sure it's clean. We're going to take our other O-ring, small one, slide it, snap it in the groove. Take my ball, check ball, I'm going to push on it, make sure it's good and seated. Okay. Then take my ball, stick it on top of my spring. I'm going to put this O-ring on top of my lower valve screw, get that in that groove, just like the upper valve screw, it's got the same groove. Okay. Go ahead. Tighten it up. Like I said, pretty snug with the hand. You can also take your channel locks again, 1/8 of a turn to 1/4 of a turn. That's plenty. This O-ring groove right here is a pretty shallow O-ring groove. It can make assembly a little hard at times, but so I'm going to stretch my O-ring a little. And get that seated in there, like that. Now we're going to go ahead and assemble your pump head, to your chemical cylinder. Got my hardware here. So we're going to go ahead and line this up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a couple of these screws in here. Try to get that retainer position to where I know about where those screws are. Then you're just going to line your screws up. Get your little recess there lined up on your cylinder. So your O-ring groove, your O-ring is on the face of your chemical cylinder, okay? I'm gonna have to turn this so I can assemble this a little easier. I know you guys aren't gonna be able to see real good, but I can't really see from that vantage point that I'm looking at right now, so I'm gonna have to turn it. So bear with me. So I'm gonna assemble this a little bit of an angle. So these screws are set at, we're going to tighten these down to about 12 inch-pounds or so. I just start one. And then when I can feel the second one start sucking up against the O-ring, I just stop. And then I gradually bring this other one in till I feel it kind of stop. So you have your pump head on attached right now, okay? So I put a little bit of an angle and you'll see why. So I'm going to go ahead and finish tightening those up. Snug them. Okay, the clutch disengaged. Clutch disengaged. So that's set about 12 inch-pounds. So like if you're using, you know, a regular screwdriver, just go until it's tight. It'll be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off tightening this chemical cylinder inside this main cylinder, this end plate. Give it a little bit of a twist. Not putting a ton of pressure, but I'm just making sure it's good and snug. Okay, so now I tighten that up a little bit so we get a little, we're crooked there, right? So now I just go back through, loosen these a little bit so I can slide my pump head, and I'm going to look at it, line it up. How I usually do it is I set it on the edge of a table, try to square it up the best I can, keep it looking straight. Looks pretty good. There, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten it up. Got those two. I'm going to go ahead and add my other screws in here. So I'm just going to finish these off. Kind of want it so tight. Okay, so I'm just letting the screwdriver go until it turned in my hand. I'm just doing it in a star pattern, just like we do everything else. So now I'll go ahead and suck this one up tight. Okay, that's tight. Then I'll go back and tight, tight. Check these last two again. And that's how you install your pump head to your chemical cylinder. The next step is we're going to go ahead and assemble your outlet fitting. Okay. This seal right here is basically always on your water side. We don't replace these all the time. In repair kits, we don't include that one. We rarely see anybody ever needing to replace them, so we do not send that with a kit. So if you ever need one, we have it, we can get it for you, but generally you don't need to replace it. So right now we're going to install our parts inside of our outlet fitting. We're going to install a poppet, a spring, and a T. Basically we're going to be installing a check valve. So in your kit, you're going to receive a poppet with an O-ring on it. You're going to receive a spring, and you're going to receive a T. Okay. So this all comes in one bag. These are already pre-assembled. You're going to put the cone side into your outlet fitting. And it's going to fit down inside of a tapered area in there on your outlet fitting. There's a tapered surface, and that is going to go down and seal against there. So you just want to make sure it's straight. Now one thing, you know, again, when you go to reassemble, make sure everything looks good. Make sure you got everything clean out of there. I've seen these packed full of solidified product before. And you really got to make sure that that surface down there is clean. Inside of there, you got to make sure that surface is clean. Otherwise, the seal will not make a good seal, that O-ring. So the spring has got a tapered side and it's got a big side. The tapered side with the small hole goes towards this part of your T. Insert it like that. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and insert it in the back of your poppet, which I can show you that quick. I might as well. There's a relief in the inside of that poppet, and that spring fits right in. See it? It'll stay there. Slide your assembly inside your outlet fitting. Now, you can use a needle nose pliers to do this. You know, in the field, that's probably what you're going to have, so that's why I chose to use this tool for this demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and slide my needle nose across the T, and I'm going to give it a quarter of a turn, and I'm going to line it up with this neck right here off the outlet fitting. Okay, so that poppet and that T should be lined up with that neck. As you can see, there's two little recesses right here. That's where your T will slide in, and then there's a groove inside of there, and you just turn it, line it up with your with this stem right here on your outlet fitting, and you're good. Now we're going to take our Jayco body. There's a groove down inside this Jayco body. We're going to put our O-ring in there. We're going to seat it. This O-ring comes in the kit. We don't see a lot of bad ones, but sometimes there is, so we include it. So I'm going to go ahead and install that on my outlet fitting. Tighten it up. And right there is basically your assembled outlet fitting. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to assemble your reversing rod bracket. So in your kit, you're going to receive 2 lock nuts and 2 bumpers. So the first thing that I do is I always look to make sure my reversing rod bracket looks to be in good shape. I pay attention to the angles of these tabs where your bumpers go. I pay attention to those, make sure they don't look bent back or pulled forward, anything like that. They're at an angle for a specific reason, because those angles help with the time of the valve block, the valve on rotation. So I just want to make sure there's no cracks, no breaks, anything like that. It looks okay. So bumper slides through. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put a nut on the back side. And these nuts, the nut driver side is 5/16 nut driver, and that will they'll install no problem on there. You might have to do a little bit of grinding on a nut driver to get it to fit in there, but it will fit. I've ground this one off, as you can tell. I just made the wall thickness a little thinner, so it helps for assembly. So we're gonna go ahead and slide this other bumper in. The nut. I just put it in the nut driver, it's easier. Tighten my nut onto my bumper. Snug it up tight. And that's basically how you do your reversing rod bracket, assemble it, get it all ready. There's 2 witness holes on the bottom here, and that's going to be to line up on your valve block, and I'll show you that. But here's your valve block. You have a boss right here and a boss right here. Okay. So you're going to slide your toggle lever through. Those 2 little posts or bosses will line up with those holes, and that'll hold your cage right on there. And then you can go ahead and put your screws in. That way you got them ready. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and assemble your guide. This guide I have trimmed, as you can see. I did a cutaway version of this. So I trimmed that boss off there and that neck, and I'm going to show you, and I've colored this groove right here because it's hard to see, so I colored that yellow. And we're going to go ahead and install a quad-ring seal into this groove in your guide. So that's how it'll look when it's installed inside the guide. Okay, I just wanted to show you that because it's such a tight little area that I can't really show you any other way, but you'll see it when you go to assemble it. You'll definitely see it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, again, you're going to squeeze your NQT seal, your quad ring seal right here. Squeeze that, slide it into the nose. Looks something like that. And basically it's just like that polypack seal. We're just going to fold it back, get it started in that groove. It's tricky. Get it started in that groove. Work it around. I'm gonna have to look in there. Sorry I can't show you, but I'm just gonna work it around, just pushing it in that groove. So now that I have it assembled inside that groove, I'm going to take my pick, again, put it inside that quad ring. I'm going to rotate it around that quad ring, make sure it's good and seated. Okay. And it looks like it's real nice, really seated good. So again, I'm going to take a little Parker Super O lube here. I'm going to put a thin covering on that. 111 NQT. Make sure it's good and covered. It doesn't have to be on thick, you know, it just has to be covered. So then you're going to slide your adjustment knob into that back groove. And this is your lock knob. So I'm just going to show you how to assemble it, just because we didn't cover that in disassembly. So you got a lock washer, and you got an indicator washer. This indicator washer has got a boss on it, right here, little boss, and it's got a little tip that's angled and bent, and that's that little arrow for your numbers is going to line up on your numbers on your guide. Okay. So the first thing you do is take your lock washer, apply it, insert it over the top of your threads there. Then take your indicator washer, slide that on. So this boss right here, or if I can turn that, there you go, might be able to see it. That boss right there needs to be facing up or away from the main body of your lock knob. Okay, so now that we have that assembled, we'll set those off to the side for right now, and then we'll come back to them when we're ready to install them onto the pump. Now we're going to bring our pump back in, and we're going to bring our valve block assembly back in. Grab our O-rings that we're going to need for this. Now on the top of these end plates, you're going to see that it's got a recess for that O-ring. It's got another one right there. Same matching set on the valve block. You grab your O-ring, set it on your end plate. Grab your other O-ring, set it on your end plate. Go ahead, line those your 4 screws up with your brass inserts. See? So they're lined up. So you want to line those up Make sure, I'm gonna take a look here and make sure everything looks okay. Yeah. So you just want to take your time when you're doing this part. Make sure everything's good lined up. So now I'm gonna go ahead and just start these. I'm not running them all the way down. They haven't even touched the top of the cage, the bracket yet. Now that one I'll run to the top of the bracket. This one I'll run to the top of the bracket. Top of the bracket. And this one I'm just going to go ahead and finish out and snug down. Okay. Again, that's 12 inch-pounds. You know, you just, if you got a regular screwdriver or you don't have one with a clutch, like every screwdriver is different than the electric ones, so you know, you just have to kind of use your best judgment there. Now we're going to go ahead and look to make sure everything stayed in place, which it did. You'll know if it didn't because it will leak. So we're going to go ahead and assemble our outlet fitting into our valve block right here. I'm going to give it a little turn like this. Just turn it. Get that out of your way so you can see. Just going to turn it. Just nice and slow as it inserts into that hole, installs. I'll turn it this way for you. So now you're going to take your injection tube and bring it in to your Jayco body. Slowly move that down. Get it lined up the best you can there. So you're going to see that it pulled that outlet fitting out a little bit. That's okay. You just take your bolts, install them in that hole. Take your other one. Tighten it up. Now, those again are 7/16. So we're going to go ahead and snug those up. Draw them in. Try to show you. Pretty simple. I know you guys all know how to tighten things up, I'm sure. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect your Jayco nut. I'm going to push that ferrule in and that grip ring. We're going to connect that Jayco nut to this body. So I'm going to give it a little bit of pressure. Pull it back just a hair to line everything up good so my nut gets good and lined up on that body. And I'm just going to tighten it up. And that grip ring's probably exposed about, I'd say 1/16 of an inch or so. We'll just give it a couple more turns. It's plenty tight. And if that does develop, like you ever notice it's loosened up or a little bit of leak, you just tighten it and it'll keep squeezing on that grip ring. They are reusable. You know, you take it loose, you can pop it out. Okay, so the next step we're gonna do is we're gonna take our actuating arm and we're gonna install that on the back of the pump here. So your reversing rod bracket, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm gonna try to show you. Right here. It's got two little tabs right there. You're gonna slide your actuating arm onto that, onto your main piston shaft. This reversing rod has to sit between those two tabs. Can't be over, can't be under. Gotta sit between the two tabs. Okay? So we're gonna go ahead and slide that in. Now we're gonna put the spring, and that every kit comes with a new $299 spring. Every kit does. We prefer to just, you should replace it. You know, all springs wear, you know, they lose tension over time, so especially after continuous use. So we're going to go ahead and now we're going to take this hook and it's going to hook inside of this little roller on this reversing rod. There's a little brass roller right in there, right there, little brass roller where that hook is going to hook to. Okay, you line it up on your bracket in between your two tabs, grab your spring, long side is what you're going to be hooking to. I take a pick and just give it a little pop, so now I have that connected to the spring. Now you're going to take the other end of your spring and you're going to hook it onto this brass roller right here. Okay, little bronze roller. So what I do is I'm just going to give it a stretch, take my pick. It's going to be hard to see, it's hard to show you this, but I just take my pick, going to stretch that spring out, get it around there, and pop it down on to that roller. And moves nice, free, no issues there. Alright, next thing we're going to install is our guide that we put together. Okay, so we got our guide, got an O-ring that's going to go between this guide and inside this main piston shaft. Now, when you're putting this guide on, remember that you had your your NQT seal and your quad ring. Okay, so you're gonna slide this on. Careful going over your threads. You're gonna get on that little shoulder right there. Slowly turn it. Be careful going over that hole. So now you have it where your micro screw is hitting your adjustment knob, tail end. So now you're just going to tighten your adjustment knob. So that O-ring that you stuck in there, I always like to give it a little look-see. Make sure that it's installed in there all the way, which it is. now you have to, we're going to, this hole right here is where your lock knob's going to go. Your lock knob's going to go into your micro screw right there. I'm going to have to turn this so I can see. Lining it up. There's that flat that we talked about earlier on your indicator washer. That flat has to be inside this groove right here in your guide. That flat holds that indicator straight on your numbers, okay? So I'm going to go up a little, make sure that O-ring stays slid back, and now I'm just going to go ahead and tighten that guide. The reason why it's a little stiff on this model to tighten that up is because it does run dry in the atmosphere, and plus that chemical piston is so big, so it takes quite a little bit of pressure to turn everything. So I'm going to go ahead, tighten it up. I'm going to make a couple rotations around just to make sure everything's good and snug. I just put it on the flat there, and I'm going to rotate it. What I like to do is rotate it until my numbers are straight with my pump, dead centered. Then I'm going to tighten that lock knob up. So I like to have my numbers so they're straight in line, so you can see. You can position it however you like it. We just send them out of the factory like this, so they're nice and straight. Now we're going to go ahead and adjust your actuating arm. This measurement's critical. This is from the face of this, right, this shaft, and the face of your main piston shaft right here, to the face of your actuating arm has to be 400 thousandths. Okay, so you can get a machinist scale or, you know, a tape measure, figure out where 400 thousandths is on your tape measure, and adjust it from there. Okay, so I want to keep that at 400 thousandths. The reason why that's critical is that is what times your whole pump. Okay, it times the whole pump. It keeps it this stroking in a certain fashion to everything else that's stroking in a certain fashion down here. So when it's cycling, it has to maintain a certain level of time. So like I've seen a lot of repairs come in where people stuck stuff up here, and that throws it out of time because there was probably another issue with the unit, so they think that it's something else, and they put this up there and it works, and it makes the valve just stroke a little bit instead of making a full stroke, and you're not getting the right amount of concentrate out on every stroke, and it's definitely not going to work correctly. So you just want to make sure that you're at 400 thousandths or close to it. It don't have to be perfect, but you know, you can't have it way out here and you can't have it way in here. You know, you want to keep it. I mean, if you were off 30 thousandths, is it going to be the end of the world? Probably not. But, you know, the closer you keep it to 400, the better you know it's going to work. So I'm going to grab that, my Allen wrench here. So right now, grab my scale again. Hold that at 400 thousandths. Run my Allen wrench in there. So I'm just gonna hold it there. And I'm gonna tighten it up. Okay, I've just got it so it's set. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and measure this again. Yep, 400 thousandths right on the dot. I put a little witness mark on that scale and it is right on the mark. So one thing I look for is actuating arm position. Make sure it's all straight, everything is lined up. I try to center this rod inside this hole on the actuating arm right here. Try to center that, you know, the best you can. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. Now this part you need tight because you don't want it to work loose. So snug that up really good. This is a 5/32 Allen wrench, and you know, I use this style just basically to set it, and then usually we have a ratchet with a 5/32 Allen head in it and tighten it up that way with a bit. But you know, in the field, my advice, you're going to use a long handled one like this. It's nice to be able to get in there to snug it up, but I would finish it off with a short Allen wrench on the short side of the bend, you know, and finish tightening that up. So one thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put a little grease right here, and then you're going to want to put grease right here on that roller. You want to get that all greased up, and then you want to put that same grease, you're going to want to put on that side also. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put my cover on after I've greased it. And there is a gap on the back side of that. I'm going to position my finger in there to keep it spread apart just a hair. And we're going to get this thing started. Tighten the screws up. I'm just going to run down to the snug. Again, just snug. And that is one assembled. It's not hard to assemble the proportioner or take it apart. You know, it just takes a little bit of practice. And once you do it a few times, it becomes easier and easier and easier. A lot of it is just getting, you know, things installed in the right fashion, and to take your time, not to rush, and put things on backwards. Double check your work, you know. but it's pretty simple. Most anybody could assemble this in the field. You'll figure out little tricks and everything like that. So thank you.